What's up everybody, SuperDorks fan here, and today I'm going to tell you about the 10 things that I hate about my Mustang. Now, I was nominated by Joyride TV, so thank you very much for nominating me, man. I'm going to go ahead and nominate Nick Murray and the Getawayer as well. I'd love to hear the 10 things you guys hate about your cars. So anyway, first I want to preface this whole video by saying that hate is a very strong word, and I absolutely love this car, and it was a stretch for me to even think of 10 things that I dislike about it. In fact, I only have 8, and my wife is going to give 2 that she doesn't like, but there's very few things that I truly hate about this car. It's mostly just things that I just dislike, and I wish that they could improve or change. I love this car, and there's nothing to hate about it, really, in my opinion. But the first thing that I will say right off the bat, number one, first thing that I hate about the Mustang is the sound. So I'm still one of the old school guys that loves, the idea of a Mustang with a V8. I still think that is the proper Mustang configuration, but I'm open-minded enough to enjoy the idea of a 4-cylinder turbo Mustang. I think it's going to be, it's a great car. It's obviously, with the tune and whatnot, it has as much torque as the standard GT already, and there's just tons of potential here for mods and whatnot. So, very stout motor, a great performer, but the sound just isn't there. And even if it didn't have the Mustang badge, just the way that this 4-cylinder sounds, even with exhaust systems and whatnot, it doesn't sound as good as stuff like a Focus RS or other 4-cylinder turbocharged vehicles, and there could be a lot of improvement there. And it's just, especially from the factory, but even with aftermarket exhaust systems, I'm not super impressed by any of them. There's a few that are better than others, but just the sound of this car, it kind of leaves me wanting. So yes, the sound isn't the best. The second thing that I don't like about the EcoBoost Mustang here is the heavy clutch. Now, the clutch is even heavier than the GTs, and you might say I'm being a baby for complaining about how heavy the clutch is, but it's the heaviest 2015 clutch I think I've ever used in a modern car. Obviously, there's aftermarket clutches and things that are heavier, and you can live with any clutch. You just have to get used to it and do enough leg workouts so it's not painful after a while. But it's a little bit uncomfortable in traffic if you're constantly in and out with the clutch, to have to deal with that. It just seems unnecessarily heavy for being a 4-cylinder. To have such a super heavy clutch just seems kind of odd, and so that's the second thing I dislike about the car. The third thing is the gauge font. Now, this is something I hated ever since the car was released. It's just one of those things that you just, it's a tough pill to swallow, but you just accept it and move on. I love gauge fonts that are exciting and interesting to look at, because you look at gauges all the time, and I think it's one of the most overlooked areas of car design that I think should be focused on more. And this car, the gauge font looks like it's straight out of like a Toyota Camry or a Nissan Altima or something. Like, it is the most bland gauge font, and they're not interesting looking. They don't have any kind of accents of color. I mean, you can have, with the Ford My Color thing, you can change the color of the background lighting, but I wish it was some kind of exciting font. And even the Shelbys have the same boring font. The only interesting things they added were the ground speed title there over on the speedometer, and then the revolutions per minute thing, just to kind of make it a little more, I guess, sporty. Made it a little more airplane inspired, but still give it some kind of cool graphics. If you want to see how cool gauges are done, look at the Dodge Challenger, and just about any other vehicle out there has more exciting gauges to look at. So that's another thing I don't like. The fourth thing is the rattles in the car. Now, it is a Ford, and you can go ahead and make all the jokes you want, but they actually really improved the interior here for the 2015 model. It's much, much nicer than the 13s and 14s and all the ones that came before it as well. And so the interior overall is very nice, but like most cars seem to develop rattles eventually. Mine has 25,000 miles, and it has 2 rattles that have been present for about half the time I've owned it so far. The first is right around the sunglasses holder, the headlight control switch. That always likes to rattle, especially whenever the interior is warmer, like if the sun's beating down on it. That likes to squeak a lot. And then the other rattle is somewhere in the rear window area, and it only happens at highway speeds, but as soon as you get onto the highway, you hear this little rattle that's just constantly going, and it's not loud. It's not super annoying in the pitch and the tone of it, but it is there, and just something that's obviously not very desirable. The fifth thing I don't like about the Mustang here is the cold seats. Now, I saw that as whenever it was going to be available here on all the premium versions, the EcoBoost and the GT Premium, both have cooled seats as standard, as long as you don't get the Recaros. You have the heated and the cooling function, which is really great. And I was like, man, this is going to be super nice in the summer. I've never had cooled seats before. I was all excited about these cooled seats. And then, I tried them out over this past summer, and it just like does not work. So the seat bottom gets really cold, your butt is freezing, but the back doesn't cool off, and it's supposed to. Some people said it was never supposed to cool it off, but if you look at some Ford vehicles, it works properly, and it is supposed to cool off the back. The problem is the design from the factory. They engineered the venting for the back part of the seat very poorly, and there's actually, I think, a TSB put out to fix it, supposedly. The Ford F-150 has the same issue, and so there's something out there to try and fix it, but from what I've heard, the fix doesn't do anything at all, and in some cases even makes it worse. So it just, I mean, it depends on person to person, but for me, my back gets hotter than my lower half in the summer, and so it'd be nice to have, your back get cooled off, and that would be the priority, not the, butt and the bottom area. So that's just, a strange thing that unfortunately doesn't work great in the Mustang here. The sixth thing is the reliability of the EcoBoost Mustang. Now, I haven't had really any issues that are design flaws too much, aside from the boost hose popping off a few times. Those of you that have been subscribed for a few months have heard all about that, and so that kind of scared me and made the car run rich and freak out for a little bit until I finally figured out what was going on. It was just the boost hose flying off because the clamps aren't the best from the factory. And so, but aside from that, the car hasn't had any breakdowns or any kind of real issues. But that doesn't mean that it won't in the future. And I'm still a little paranoid about this whole platform. It's a brand new engine. It's, I mean, some people have said it's the same engine as the Mazda Speed 6 that's just been reworked a little bit. I don't know, but either way, there's new components, a new turbo. And on top of all that, it also has direct injection, which, as everyone knows from any other direct injected car, it likes to get gunked up a lot. The Minis, like the Mini I had, that was an issue you had to worry about with that car, and other cars, all cars basically with direct injection, get gunked up with carbon buildup, and it's just an issue that you have to worry about. And so that's something that, in the future is going to be a costly thing, whenever that comes around. There's catch cans and things you can do to prolong that issue, but you're still going to have that issue eventually, and so that's another thing that I dislike about the car for the long term. The seventh thing that I dislike about the Mustang here is the depreciation, and this one was a shocker for me until just recently looking around. And so this car, now this one has the 201A package, which has the blind spot monitoring and the shaker subwoofer in the back and all that kind of stuff. So pretty loaded up EcoBoost here. This one would retail for a little over 30,000 bucks, sticker price, maybe 32 or so. Anyway, that is what it started out at. Now, this car is very high mileage, for a 2015 Mustang, 25,500 miles. So that's part of the reason why, but the depreciation on these has fallen like a rock. I mean, I know new cars are always rough. The first year you kind of lose a ton, but I didn't realize it'd lose as much as it has. So I looked up the Kelley Blue Book value for this car for trade-in, and it's worth $19,000 trade-in. That's as much as the BRZs are still going for, and that just blew my mind. Like, I mean, okay, maybe it's a Ford, and yes, it's not the Mustang everyone wants because it's the four-cylinder, and it's kind of looked down upon still by the traditionalists, but still 19,000 bucks for a car that was like 32 just a year ago, like that just blew my mind. And so the depreciation really sucks. I mean, it's great for those of you that want to buy one used, but for anyone that has bought one new and didn't put down a ton of money on their, down payment for the loan, you're going to be upside down if you ever want to get out of it in the near future, because they just dropped immediately like crazy. And I couldn't believe it. It was like, and I checked like 2 months ago and it was like 20,000 or 21. And then it's like every month it drops like another $1,000 bucks. And it's like, this has to end at some point, but it's just like right now they're just absolutely being destroyed as far as their depreciation value. So it's pretty amazing. So that kind of sucks, but that's something that I obviously dislike about the car. And the last complaint that I have is the bright taillights. Now, you would think that's very good because you don't want people rear-ending you. You want to make sure your taillights are visible and whatnot. But these taillights are so bright that, like, some people actually complain that, like, friends that are riding behind me and whatnot, but not even that. The biggest thing that is annoying about the super bright taillights at night is whenever you're coming out to the car, there's a very convenient thing where you can pop the trunk from a little button right under the trunk there, as long as you have the key fob on you, and the trunk pops right open. And if the car is locked, the lights will, blink to, let you know it's unlocking, which is all fine and good, except whenever you pop it and they blink right in your face as you're leaning over to open the trunk, and these lights are blaring right in your face. And it's not quite as bad in the daylight here, but at night it is brutal. I mean, it literally blinds you, and my wife complains about it all the time too. So those are the 8 things that I don't like about the Mustang, but I'm gonna have her come over here and give the 2 things that she doesn't like about it as well. So here's my lovely wife Beth to tell you the 2 things she doesn't like about the car.
So one thing I don't like about the car is The doors are so big, and half the time I feel like I'm going to ding another car. Normally we park far away, but I just don't like them because they're really heavy and sometimes the wind's blowing really hard, and yeah. The second thing that's not really my favorite is how low the car is. I know it looks cool, but sometimes I have to like really duck down to get inside the car. So yeah, that's it.
So yeah, that is it for the 10 things that we hate about the Mustang. I'm sure you guys are going to leave your feedback about what you think of our list here. But thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Take care.